You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series, Doctor Who. And today we're discussing the second Doctor story, The Invasion. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Cory Sticha. Hey, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Folks, remember to like The Secrets of Doctor Who on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Secrets of Doctor Who. You can retweet us on X at SQPN. Leave us comments wherever you find us on social media. And I want to tell you about another show on the StarQuest Network I'm certain you will enjoy.
Wait a minute. What? You said you can retweet us on X. Shouldn't that be re-X us on X?
You know, I don't know what we're supposed to call that new social network anymore, because you also go to twitter.com to go to X these days, as well as x.com. So
instead of the artist formerly known as Prince, the social network formerly known as Twitter, is that what we should just call it?
If only there was some other show on SQP and I could really enjoy.
Well, let me tell you about another show on the StarQuest Network you are certain to enjoy, called The Secrets of Star Wars, which you can find at sqpn.com/Star Wars. Yes, you know what our address is. All right, so this time we are talking about the second Doctor story, The Invasion, and as usual, I'll turn it to Jimmy to give us a recap.
This week, the second Doctor, Jamie and Zoe, find themselves near our sister planet, the Moon, in the 20th century. But someone on the dark side shoots a missile at them, forcing to make an emergency landing on Earth. There, they discover that an electronics megacorporation run by a man named Tobias Vaughn is up to no good. They also meet the apparently newly formed unit, headed by now Brigadier General Lethbridge Stewart. They also need help in repairing some circuits that were damaged in the TARDIS's emergency landing, so they go to meet a guy named Professor Watkins, but he's disappeared. His photographer niece, Isabel, says that he's vanished while working for a mysterious electronics corporation. It turns out that Tobias Vaughn, the head of the company, is in league with the Cybermen, who were the mysterious party that shot at the Doctor from the dark side of the Moon. And Vaughn is helping them execute an invasion of Earth that he's been working on with them for 5 years. Vaughn knows better than to trust the Cybermen, so he plans to bend them to his will and rule the world himself. To do that, he's been forcing Professor Watkins to build a machine for him that will inflict destructive emotions on the Cybermen and cause them to malfunction and die. But Vaughn also wants an insurance policy in case that doesn't work, so when he learns about the TARDIS, he wants to force the Doctor to give it to him. The cyber invasion begins with a ground attack by Cybermen already on Earth, with a cyber invasion fleet about to land from space, and with a cyber mothership broadcasting signals that put almost all humans under cyber control due to chips that the electronics company has made. The Doctor and unit then begin a multi-pronged response to this invasion, and they start winning. But it turns out that the Cybermen have their own insurance policy in case of things going wrong. They announce that they will launch a bomb that will destroy all life on Earth. With his cherished beloved invasion failing, the megalomaniacal Vaughn switches sides, and now, in particular because he now hates the Cybermen for destroying his dream of world conquest. But he's soon killed by his former allies. The situation comes down to a last frantic attempt to destroy the cyber bomb before it can strike Earth, which an anti-missile battery in England manages to do, and also it comes down to the destruction of the cyber spaceship that's transmitting the cyber control signals affecting all the humans, which a Russian missile manages to do in. With everything set to rights, the Doctor gets the new TARDIS circuits, and he, Jamie, and Zoe take off for further adventures.
The end.
The end.
Father Cory, your overall impression of this one?
Well, I really enjoyed this one. It's a good story. I mean, it's an 8-part story, and it is I felt a little bit long, but there's still a lot. As Jimmy, you could tell from Jimmy's summary, there was a lot going on. 3/4 of this story exist. You know, we have the actual original video, and so to get to see the second Doctor in action, as it was recorded and everything, is fantastic. It is a really good story, and I really enjoyed it. You know, for classic Who, it moves pretty well and everything, even again being 8 parts. So I really enjoyed watching it.
Good. Jimmy?
I agree. It is 8 parts. It's the only 8-parter in the history of Doctor Who. And although there are longer stories, this one moved pretty well. It could have been trimmed a little, maybe down to 6 or 7 episodes, but it doesn't feel like it's 8 episodes long. It feels like it moves quite quickly. There's a lot of complexity going on here. I have some particular things that I like about this that I'll get to, but this was essentially a trial run for the Third Doctor's time. We only have 4 Second Doctor stories left after this, and they were trying to figure out what can we do with the show that would save money and allow it to go forward. And their decision was, well, if we set a lot more stories on Earth, then we wouldn't have to build all these expensive alien sets and as many alien costumes and things. And so we could do a lot more location shooting. We could go to a lot more rock quarries in England and save money. And so this was essentially a trial for, could we do a big, compelling story set on Earth with UNIT as the Doctor's newly created allies? Because, of course, he's going to need allies if he's on Earth. And even though they meant it to be a cost-saving measure, this ended up being the most expensive Doctor Who story for a long time. Because they expanded it. It was originally planned to be 6 episodes, but another story called The Dream Spinner fell through. The Dream Spinner was about an individual who could make people believe that their dreams were real, and that script ended up not working out, so they had to expand this one to 8 episodes to fill the schedule. And I guess maybe one of the other stories also got an extra couple of episodes, and that additional filming helped make it more expensive. So they didn't end up saving costs here, but they did manage to prove that Earth-based UNIT stories could work. And so we got the Third Doctor's time, his first couple of seasons basically being almost exclusively Earth-based until he gets the TARDIS control back. And I enjoyed it. In fact, I have to say, I enjoyed it a lot more than I enjoy a lot of Third Doctor stories. The Brigadier in this is just so different than he is in the Third Doctor's time. He is cordial, he is helpful, he trusts the Third Doctor, and he's reasonable. You know, he's just a almost completely different character, certainly in his attitude. And I really like this version of the Brigadier. He is not cold and shouty and constantly exasperated the way he is in the Third Doctor's time. And partly that may be because of the differences between the Second and the Third Doctor. The Second Doctor is much nicer to the Brigadier than the Third Doctor is. Like, there's one point where, the Doctor has been separated from Jamie and Zoe, and he has a task he needs to attend to. Jamie and Zoe are in danger, and the Doctor very kindly says to the Brigadier, I'm afraid I'll have to leave my 3 friends. There's also a girl named Isabel that I mentioned who's kind of a temporary companion. And the Doctor says, I'm afraid I'll have to leave my 3 friends in your very capable hands. And he's not constantly running the Brigadier and humanity down the way the Third Doctor does. And so it's like, wow, too bad they didn't have Patrick Troughton for the Third Doctor.
I think you're get a point there, though, where it's the difference between the personalities of the Doctor. The Brigadier is around the Doctor a lot more with the Third Doctor, and you could very easily understand why he would get exasperated with this character that, at this point is only their second encounter, and he learned to trust the Doctor in his second encounter. And he trusts the Doctor in the Third Doctor's time as well, but the personality conflicts, as you said, the Third Doctor is much more prickly. He's much more full of himself. So it'd be easy for someone like the Brigadier to get exasperated and to get a bit more shouty with somebody like that. So it's understandable.
Yeah, we just talked about the 5 Doctors, where the Second Doctor and the Brigadier were teamed up again after all those years, a decade and a half after this, and it was really nice to look at that and go, hey, that was actually what they were like when they were first together in this adventure.
Yeah, the Brigadier warms up again in the Five Doctors when he's paired with the Second Doctor again.
Yeah,
he's also retired then, so that generally tends to help. And there are a couple we'll talk about them, but there are a couple of very famous scenes in this episode that survived through the history of Doctor Who that people know well. So
I would also guess that the extra episodes from the non-existent Dream Spinner probably went to War Games, which is a few stories after this, which was a 10, 12-parter?
It was a 10-parter. I think they may have gone to a different serial, though. At least that's what I've read.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll get my overall impression. First time watching this, really enjoyed it. It was a complex plot, interesting. The villains who are not trusting each other and betraying each other, and curse your inevitable betrayal.
Inevitable
to quote
betrayal.
Firefly,
curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal.
Yep.
Yes, one of my favorite Firefly quotes of all time. And so it was a lot of fun. I really liked the Doctor in this. The Zoe, it just continues to be a fun companion. I really enjoy her interaction with the Doctor, with other people, with Jamie, and how it's so interesting how to contrast her with Adric, who was also a wonderkind, and how everybody kind of loves Zoe, but they hated Adric. And it's not, I don't think it's just because Zoe was cute. I think it's also just the personality was better.
Well, she's much less betrayal.
Yeah. She's not a traitor. She doesn't trait nearly as much as Adric did. And the fact she's cute and looks great in a sequined catsuit doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
But
it
really does come down to her personality. Yeah. She's bright and bubbly, and she's got a little bit of an ego, but not the way Adric did.
No. So I did love this return, the second appearance of the unit, Brigadier. Well, it's really the first time with the unit, but the Brigadier. We get Benton, who is Corporal, later Sergeant. We get his introduction. We get Turner, Captain Jimmy Turner, instead of later Captain Mike Yates. Maybe the actor wasn't available to come back or something like that. But it was interesting to see the Brigadier was much more casual with Turner, calling him Jimmy all the time, than he is with Yates.
Captain Yates.
Yeah. So it's a very different dynamic between them. It's interesting. Like you said, the Brigadier was different. But I mean, I was going to say, like, what do we think of the Brigadier and Benton? Jimmy, you gave your impression of the Brigadier's differences here, but the Brigadier and Benton feels a little different too. He's much more, soldier by the book and less individual personality coming out in this.
And he's junior enlisted, at least what in the United States military would call junior enlisted as a corporal, versus, as a sergeant, that's, non-commissioned officer. That's a little bit, a little more experience, a little more authority, and so again, having served, you could kind of see that in the real military, that as they go up the ranks, they either become more strict military or become more relaxed like this, more casual, and especially working closely with the Brigadier for as many years as Benton ends up doing. I mean, he's with unit for the whole time through this up to the Fourth Doctor's era, and even into the Fifth Doctor, I think. I can't remember, but
also the actor who played Benton, John Levine, he basically got thrown into this role last minute, and so he's coming to grips with this part as he's playing it. Basically, they had hired another guy to be Benton, but the other guy was unprofessional and wouldn't show up for work on time and got fired really fast, and they needed a replacement Benton. And John Levine was a guy who previously played extras and monsters on the show. But he got along well with Patrick Troughton and Fraser Hines. In fact, the producer recalled him once dressed up in a Yeti uniform. He played one of the Yetis, doing a dance to entertain Troughton and Hines. And so they said, John, we fired the other guy. You want to be Benton? And he said, okay. And it turned into a regular gig for him.
That's awesome. So you mentioned that Father Cory, you mentioned that a couple of these episodes don't exist in the film format anymore. Right. Episodes 1 and 4 are reconstructed in animation. That's what I watched on BritBox was the reconstruction. And I don't think it took away from anything. I think it's interesting to watch the first episode in animation and then switch to live action and to see the differences. They do change some things clearly when it's animated. I think that's interesting.
One of the things that I thought was more effective in the animated form is the goons that do security for the Electronics Corporation. They look so much more sinister in animation. They look like the second Terminator.
Right.
They've got the helmet on, they've got the dark glasses, which are just jet black. They're wearing jet black uniforms. You can't see, they look physically more intimidating. They're scarier and more sinister in the animation. There's also a joke because, of course, the animation was done after the invention of New Who. One of the things that, one of the character quirks of Isabel, Professor Walters's niece, who is an aspiring photographer, is that she doesn't write any notes on paper. She writes on the wall because you can't lose a wall. and so but if you look carefully, so they're periodically going to her wall to like find a phone number or find a note that she and Zoe left for them. And if you look carefully, Bad Wolf is on the wall.
Oh, nice.
I missed that. That's great.
I didn't see that. That's awesome. She comes across as kind of vapid, especially in the beginning. She's kind of like an airhead a bit. She does redeem herself a bit.
She kind of they've kind of filled her character in, but actually, it's funny is there are a lot of things I kind of noticed that were foreshadowing real life in this episode. Technology wise and things like that. I mean, they actually for being written and created when it foreshadowed a lot of stuff that we have today. It really predicted a lot of things. But one of the things it predicted was selfies. Because, she's an inspiring, she was a model and now she wants to be a photographer. And she uses the automatic timer feature on her camera to do selfies.
Yeah.
So the selfies. Yeah. I noticed that too.
And this was set slightly in the future. For from the time of broadcast, and you can even calculate this should have been like 1974 because it's set 4 years after the second Yeti appearance, the underground, the Web of Fear. And there's some interesting parallels between this and the Web of Fear because the Web of Fear involves the London Underground or subway, where the Yetis are lurking about and attacking. And in this, we have the London sewers, where the Cybermen are lurking about and attacking people. So there's a kind of parallel there. And then Unit is an amped up version of the army that was in the Web of Fear. They actually planned to have the Isabel character reappear in the Third Doctor's time. So she might have been a Third Doctor companion or something, but the actress apparently wasn't available or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, according to TARDIS Wiki, they say it's so this came out in 1968. They say it's either 1973 or 1979 because of the Unit dating issue, I think, or something like that.
It's a little more than that, but yeah.
Okay. So interesting to think about how they're predicting the future there.
Yeah, they also showed video conferencing as being a regular thing in this. Because they have, when we're at the name of the corporation is International Electromatics, and we could just call them, I don't know, Apple or
IBM
or something. And we'll see Tobias Vaughn talking to his assistant Packer, who he just constantly blames for everything.
Packer's very
loyal.
What is it? Disloyal or disobedient or what's the term for when a soldier disrespects his superiors?
Oh, insubordinate.
Insubordinate, yes. That's what I was trying to get the word.
He would be insubordinate if he was in the military, but he's just giving Vaughn business advice, which actually frequently is better than what Vaughn does.
Yes. Exactly.
But Vaughn and he's like head of security. So he's a thug at heart, but he's got more horse sense than Vaughn does, and Vaughn is constantly blaming him for things going wrong and accusing him of incompetence.
Packer, yelling at it all the time.
But we see him talking to Packer over a video phone in his office, and this is, you could think this is just a closed circuit, there at the electronics plant, but no, it's not, because the Brigadier's boss in unit is a general. He's like the British
defense minister. Yeah,
the British defense minister, who is himself a general, and the Brigadier ends up having to go around him to appeal to unit headquarters in Geneva. But at one point, Tobias Vaughn calls the British defense minister on the video phone. So this is established technology. This is not just a closed circuit thing at the plant.
Yeah. Well, and there's also encryption. They call it priority scramble. They call it scrambling, but that's encryption. And that we use today. A lot of your web, when you go on the web, a lot of what you do is encrypted as it goes from your computer, and your video chat and stuff like that. A lot of that's encrypted, and of course, military has much higher levels of encryption. But so that's and that's something people wouldn't have really known about, is encrypting data for communication. So that was
scrambling, they call it a lot of sometimes.
It's Major General Rutledge is the defense minister. Also, I wanted to comment on Tobias Vaughn himself, because he's an interesting character. He fits a kind of villain mold that I've seen elsewhere in British television, where you have this suave, sophisticated villain who is just cold but very nice and very accommodating, and Tobias Vaughn has a squint eye with one of his eyes, but he's so urbane and sophisticated and polite to the doctor, and when the doctor says, I want to do this, oh, but of course you shall, and this kind of stuff, and the doctor detects that something's wrong with him, though, because he doesn't blink enough, which could be because he's under cyber control, but he's not, because he regularly asserts his independence of the Cybermen, and he shifts when he gets pushed into a position he doesn't like. He gets assertive and even angry, and he starts shouting at the top of his lungs, including at Packer repeatedly, and wow, he's showing some range as an actor. The actor who plays him, Kevin Stoney, he really does. Most of the time he spends in the urbane, sophisticate, ever so polite, squint-eyed villain mode, only to start screaming at the top of his lungs, and so he kind of alternates between those two things.
Well, it's very much like a Bond villain. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, like that he was, thinking he might be under cyber control for the blinking, and actually the line goes by really quick, but he says, "My body is cybernetic, but my mind is human."
Yeah, or I think it's my body may be cybernetic, but my mind is human. He says that as at a point where the Cybermen are like, okay, we want to put you under cyber control now, or we're going to put you under cyber control. And he's like, no, my body may be cybernetic, but my mind remains human. If you want to change that, our partnership is at an end. Right. And he repeatedly threatens to end their partnership and bullies the Cybermen into going along with him. But there is this moment where I forget who it is. Someone pulls a gun on him.
He gives Watkins a gun and tells him to shoot him if Watkins, he wants to get out of it.
Watkins does, and he repeatedly shoots Vaughn in the chest, and Vaughn just laughs it off. So apparently he does have a cyber body.
Right. Yeah, and I wish they would have developed that further. I mean, obviously they show it in that scene, and they have that line, but I wish they would have even just given an explanation why his body was cybernetic.
Yeah.
What had happened, was there an accident? Was there, whatever it might be, But still, just the fact that they put that out there, and again, it wasn't just that line. They actually showed the fact that no, his body is impervious to bullets because it's not a human body.
Which is weird because I think now here's what I would do as a writer. If they want to keep this element, which they really don't need, but if they want to keep this element of him having the cybernetic body, I mean, they don't need it for plot reasons. I would have it turn out that he made the cybernetic body himself because he is an electronics manufacturer. And this body he's got looks human. It doesn't look like a Cyberman body.
Right.
So maybe this is the start of the alliance with the Cybermen. Maybe he got some technology from them that he then adapted into making his own cyber body. But it's clearly not standard off-the-rack Cybermen issue cyber body, and that itself is a big clue the Cybermen didn't make it because they don't do custom tailoring.
Now there's an interesting parallel between this story and the New Who two-parter Rise of the Cybermen, Age of Steel in the 10th Doctor time. I mean, you have a big corporation, they have technology that will cyberize, take control of people so they can be converted. It's all very similar, although in that one it takes place on another Earth in another universe and that sort of thing. But still, it's fascinating to me that they went back and redid this story in New Who.
You even have a parallel businessman in that who has a dying body. That is the equivalent of Tobias Vaughn, although in that one there are no off-world Cybermen that come into the plot.
Right.
Incidentally, I've never been a fan of that two-parter for some reason.
No. It has its issues. So let's see. The Doctor apparently hates computers very much. Which is kind of fascinating, because, again, 1968, computers were very specialized. They weren't like what today. Well, the computers would be running everything on the TARDIS. It would be a version of technology called a computer. But then computers were a very specific thing, and I just think it's kind of funny how the Doctor is kind of a Luddite in that sense.
At least the second Doctor is, of course. New face, new tastes. Yeah. I like, though, that there's this moment later on where they're trying to figure out how to take out this cyber fleet in space that's heading towards Earth. And I really like the fact that the climax to this episode, or the resolution of the plot, is a multi-pronged effort. It's not just take out the central node and everything is done. You've got the ground-based Cybermen you got to deal with. You've got the space-based cyber fleet you've got to deal with. You've got the cyber mothership you've got to deal with. It's sending out control signals that are controlling humans. You've got everything going wrong at once. And so they have to effectively divide in order to take. You've got the cyber bomb. They have to divide to take care of all of these simultaneous threats, which makes the story bigger in scope and dramatic impact. And the Doctor can't do it all. So at one point he tells Zoe, Zoe, you know how much I dislike computers, but actually I think right now that remarkable brain of yours would be a big help over in dealing with this problem. And Zoe goes to the missile control battery, which they're hoping to use to take out the cyber fleet. And there's way too many, or at least they tell us, the visuals don't change that much, but they tell us there's way more cyber spaceships coming than they anticipated, and they only have enough missiles to take out a small fraction of them. And Zoe thinks about it and says, no, you're wrong. You've got enough missiles to take out 90% or more of them. What you need to do is position your missiles in such a way that you can cause a chain reaction of explosions. So you blow up one ship, it blows up another, and so forth. And she's just adamant that this is possible. And the Brigadier finally authorizes it and says, do whatever she says. She takes 30 seconds. She walks around to different stations collecting data in the Missile Control Center. And she tells them, here are the coordinates you need to pull this off. They do. The cyber fleet is destroyed. They're all happy and celebrating and contemplating, like offering Zoe a job because she's so good at this. And she says, oh, and this is where Zoe is different than Adric. Zoe is like, oh, it was nothing special. I mean, once you have the central concept, you just have to deal with a few minor easy things. And then she rattles off a list of mathematical things you have to deal with. But she's very humble about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the contrast a little earlier.
And she gets to solve one of the major threats in the episode. That's all on her.
Yep.
And it sort of contrasts a little earlier where the Brigadier needs photos of the Cybermen in the sewers in order to prove to everyone that there's a threat. And so Isabel, the photographer, says, well, let me go. I'm a photographer. And, oh, no, that wouldn't be possible. And so Isabel goes on this feminist rant about girls can do anything boys can do. And then she and Zoe race off to London and get in trouble right away, proving the Brigadier right that they shouldn't have been sent into the tunnels.
I love the comic awkwardness of this scene because, you have the Brigadier pointing out he says this is no job for a young lady. This is a job for one of my men. And frankly, he's right, not because she's a young lady, but because she's not a trained soldier.
Exactly.
And he's got a team of soldiers who are trained to do dangerous infiltrations like this, and he's going to go get one of them. And she just gets in a snit about it. She turns to Zoe, gets Zoe in a snit about it. Oh, men. And then they turn to Jamie, who happens to be right there. And they accuse Jamie of thinking he's superior to them just because he's a man. And he's like, I never said anything like that. Of course, it's true. But he's
an
a guy,
18th century Scotsman.
He's a guy from the 17th century. I mean,
of course he's going to think that.
Of course he's going to think that, at least in terms of going on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I did love Zoe, though, where she's standing in front of the International Electromatics Siri computer there,
yes.
and basically just confounds it so that it lets out the magic smoke.
She pulls a Kirk on it.
I thought the same thing. So when at the electronics companies access points, like if you call it on the phone, you get a computer. And it doesn't appear to be a computer at first. It has a woman's voice that's indistinguishable from a normal person's. And so you don't at first realize you're talking to a computer. And the doctor gets very frustrated by voicemail. Well, okay, this episode properly predicts that.
Phone tree and voicemail.
Yeah. He didn't, unfortunately, know to just keep shouting agent, agent, agent over the phone.
Operator.
But then when you go to the plant, there's a computer at the gate. So it's effectively they have a computer as a receptionist. Mm-hmm. And it's the same woman's voice, and it's very frustrating to deal with. And Zoe literally talks it to death because she apparently knows Algol, which is an algorithmic computer language that I don't know why she's from over a century in the future. I don't know why she would know Algol, but she knows Algol, and she starts talking to the computer and gets it to
blow itself up,
fritz itself, Yeah. And she and Isabel are just laughing over this, and it's like, you just vandalized an extremely expensive piece of property, and you're just laughing about it. And this is just like
gonna come.
casual drive-by vandalism, because they're about to leave. They don't walk past it to go into the plant. They're like, oh, someone might get upset about that. We should leave. Okay, just teenage hoodlums. What's the world coming to? Teenage hoodlums from the future.
So let's talk quickly about the Cybermen in this one. This is their first appearance since the Wheel in Space, where Zoe joined the Doctor. Their next appearance will be, so this is 1968 when this came out. It won't be till 1975 with the Revenge of the Cybermen. But this is a new form of the Cybermen in this era. This is they're a change in how they look from the last time. But they'll look like this until Earthshock, the Fifth Doctor story in 1982. So that's the Cybermen in this one, and it's interesting that I think this is their first appearance on Earth, right? This is the first time they've tried to invade Earth. Another callback, or should we say a callback that New Who will make, is in Dark Water, or either Dark or the other one, or the two-parter there. Death in Heaven. They show up in front of St. Paul's in London, and there's a very similar, almost the same shot of Cybermen coming from St. Paul's.
That's one of the famous scenes I talked about that, people, when they look at classic Who, that people remember is the Cybermen marching down the steps instead of in front of St. Paul's.
It's one of two famous shots. So the first second Doctor Cyberman story was Tomb of the Cybermen. And Jamie was with the Doctor for that one, along with Victoria. And in that one, we have this wall of it's like a honeycomb, of Cybermen in chambers in a wall, and they have to rip their way out through the plastic to get out of their cells. And that became famous. We've seen that already here on Secrets of Doctor Who in other Cybermen stories, including ones from the Sixth Doctor's time. It's even in Dark Water and Death in Heaven, where you have they don't rip through it, but you have this image of the Cybermen in these chambers, filled with the dark water, and so they keep reusing that shot, and they reuse it here because the Cybermen who were on Earth have been sent down in cocoons, and they prop up a cocoon vertically, and then the Cyberman rips its way out of it. So they reuse that, and then this episode also gives us the shot of the Cybermen and St. Paul's Cathedral, and which gets reused in the future too, and it gives us the delightful Patrick Troughton second Doctor run and jump escape sequence where a Cyberman is shooting at the second Doctor from behind. He's running down an alley towards the camera. He's zigzagging from side to side and occasionally leaps to avoid a shot that he shouldn't be able to see with the eyes in the back of his head. And it's kind of very comic. It's very cartoony.
Yeah, it is very much, I was thinking like a Charlie Chaplin. You'd see him do leaps like this. You'd see, of course, Looney Tunes, Yosemite Sam or somebody like that. And that's very much the second iconic scene in this one. One thing I would point out, you mentioned earlier that this was the first time the Cybermen been on Earth. That's not true. The 10th planet.
The 10th planet is set in the future, though. That's in the 1990s.
The first time we've seen.
The first time we see it. Are they on Earth in that one?
Yes, they're at Antarctica.
Oh, right. They're on. Right, they're not on the 10th planet. They're on Earth. Okay.
This is the first time in the Doctor Who timeline, but this is the second time we as people, we as viewers have seen the Cybermen on Earth.
There's also an implied additional encounter in this because the Cybermen get photos from Tobias Vaughan of the Doctor and Jamie, and the Cybermen recognize them. And they say and Vaughn says, but isn't this the first time you've been on Earth, or have you been on Earth before? And they say, no, we haven't. But the Doctor has been off of the Earth. We've met him before on Planet 14, and Planet 14, it would have to be an adventure involving the second Doctor and Jamie because they recognize both of them, and it's an unchronicled adventure. Because it's not Tomb of the Cybermen, that's in the future.
Right.
So these Cybermen wouldn't know about it. It's not the 10th planet because that's in the future, and it doesn't involve the second Doctor and Jamie. So there is another unchronicled second Doctor adventure on Planet 14 where he meets the Cybermen. And that's mentioned in a callback in the two-parter, the Exodus of the Cybermen, whatever, and the Doctor falls at the end of the 12th Doctor's time,
12th Doctor,
where he rattles off places that Cybermen have developed or where he's fought them, and he names Planet 14.
Oh, that's nice. Right. So there is a kind of interesting action sequence. They use a lot of, in this story, a lot of military assets. They have planes, they have jeeps, they also have a helicopter. And there's a couple things about the helicopter that were kind of interesting to me. One, the Brigadier sends the helicopter as a discreet way of following Vaughn's private car. And I'm like, Is a helicopter flying low really all that discreet? Probably not. But they also used the helicopter to rescue Jamie and the doctor, Isabel and Zoe, from the rooftop. And this was in the end. I wish we'd seen this in the live action, but we only got to see this in animation. But Jamie hanging from a rope ladder, and the worst shots in Star Wars. Vaughn's army, his private army, like shooting.
Well, they even called it out in the episode about how they could hit the broadside of the barn, basically.
Yeah, they can't hit the helicopter, they can't hit Jamie, they can't hit anything.
Or flying elephant, that's what it was. They couldn't hit a flying elephant. That's the phrase they used.
They also give a little bit of cover because the doctor directs them to take the helicopter around like the north side of the building and says that will give them some cover.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Now, it's interesting you talk about the military assets. The Unit HQ in this is literally in a cargo plane. It's in a military cargo craft that apparently is apparently a TARDIS, because you have this whole headquarters complex with a place where you can make tea and a little kitchen, but also you can like load cars in there and stuff like Land Rovers and stuff like that in and out of this plane.
There is a prominent thanks at the end of this to the Ministry of Defense for their assistance in filming this. So I wonder too if a lot of
the military people were actual members of the Army, not just resources, but actually, so like some of the extras that were doing the fighting and so on.
Certainly everyone around the plane, I would bet, the exteriors of the plane. Vaughn at one point falls for the sunk cost fallacy. He makes the claim that I've gone too far. I've put too much of myself into this to back out now. And it's like, no, Vaughn, if you're a smart businessman, there's a sunk cost fallacy. You got to cut your losses. Cut your losses and move on.
And he does eventually when he gets forced to. But
yeah.
Oh, by the way, I wanted to note, speaking of the unloading scene from the cargo plane, where they're having at the the tailgate of it, they're having vehicles come out of it, and there are, at least the U.S. military has planes big enough for that.
Oh yeah.
But as they're coming out, the doctor's driving a Jeep. He's going to go to a particular location and do something, and they have the weirdest happy music playing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't normally think very much about the soundtrack, but what is this weird, peppy, happy music as in the middle of this tense sequence where the doctor is going off to do something vitally important and we're unloading military cargo?
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem
the
like the time.
Music. Yeah, it can sometimes be strange, I have to say.
You
wonder.
They kind of called it out too in the closed captioning. Usually like in closed captioning, it's when it starts, it says Doctor Who theme. Like one of them was catchy instrumental theme music. One was techno theme music. They did all these weird closed captioning, but they called that out where it's being unloaded. Peppy background music. It's really, really weird. So somebody had a little bit of fun with the closed captioning on that too. But
also, I wanted to comment on Isabel and her recklessness as a photographer, because she runs off. Even though the Brigadier has a team that he can call on to go get the photograph. Now, I don't think you really need the photographs. You've already got eyewitnesses. So he can go to Geneva and say, I have eyewitnesses placing Cybermen in the sewers. And that's a dangerous access point to the city. I need to go down there and do stuff. So he doesn't believably really need the photographs. But supposing he does, he's got a team of trained men who can go get them. I don't care if they're trained women on the team. He's got a trained team he can get to go get them. And Isabel runs off to London, taking Jamie and Zoe with her. She has Sergeant or Corporal Benton drive them, so she's wasting military resources. Why Benton goes with them, I don't know, but he does. And then they pick up her camera equipment. They go down in the sewers. A policeman tries to stop them. Benton gets orders to go down after them. Jimmy Turner and his team arrive. You've got all these people going down to rescue them. And unit soldiers and the policemen and the unit soldiers get killed. I mean, not all of them, but some do. This is because of Isabel's recklessness.
Yep.
And And she, at one point, Jimmy Turner turns to her and says, because she's talking to him about something, and he says, "Shut up and keep moving. I've already lost one man, and I don't want to lose any of the others." And it's like, whoa, burn.
Yeah.
You could nail that a little harder. It's like all you need to add is 2 words or 3 words, because of you.
Yep. Yeah. Although it doesn't seem to sink too deeply for either of them, because they end up together at the end.
Yeah.
But speaking of Turner, I have to mention the actor who plays Turner must either be a giant or like Wendy Padbury, the actress who plays Isabel, and
she's very short.
Fraser Hines must be all short, because he towers over all of them. It's kind of funny. So any other notes on this episode, Father Cory?
I get a kick out of the opening scene when the TARDIS lands, and they're, where are we at? Is it, dangerous place? And there's a cow sitting there looking at at the camera. That's such a great scene. I mean, and they obviously, it was just, we had this great tension. The TARDIS about to be blown up. Oh, now we're in a field with a cow. We're fine. There was, speaking of outfits, there was a lot of scenes of young girls in miniskirts climbing ladders, and they were pretty explicit about that.
Yeah.
I like the fact that they showed some, not just did they have the classic Land Rovers that we'll see with Unit, they had some actual US style Jeeps that they were using that would have been left over from the war.
Yep.
That's what I'm trying to think is, speaking of the Jeeps, the last Jeep at the end was a Montana Jeep, because the license plate was 406 Jeep, and Montana's area code is 406. So it was a Montana Jeep.
Nice. Very nice. Jimmy, how about you? Any other notes?
Yeah. So I like that they have Russia provide the missile to take out the cyber mothership and its transmitter. This was the Cold War. And I don't know if they were hinting that the Cold War might be over by the time this episode occurred, but they mentioned we could go to America or to Russia for help, because they've got the kind of spacecraft that can get that far out in space. But it turns out the Russians have one that they were just about to shoot anyway. We could refit that. And so it was nice to have, the Russians on the same team. That was good. Patrick Troughton is typically charming in this. There's a scene where he and Jamie are escaping up an elevator shaft, and Jamie says, "Hey, what if they discover we're gone and turn on the elevator and send it up?" And the second Doctor says, "We get squashed." And as they're climbing up the elevator shaft to the roof, you can see very prominently on the side of the shaft, it says Kilroy was here.
Yep.
and that was put there by Fraser Hines, and the directors complained, and he said, "Don't British workmen do that all the stinking time?" As a joke. And it's like, well, yeah, they do.
Nice. Very good. And then, of course, Fraser Hines is wearing a kilt, so you see all that too. So you got to be careful.
So I read something interesting about that. He was concerned because he's got this helicopter ladder escape, and as the wind is from the helicopter, because they're using a real helicopter, as the wind from the helicopter is whipping things around, he knew that it could whip the lady's skirts around, and he didn't want that happening with his kilt. So he did something that apparently the Queen of England had done to keep her skirt from ever blowing up in an undignified way, which was sew lead weights into it.
Oh.
And so he had the costumer sew fishing sinkers into the kilt to keep it from blowing around in that way. One other thing I like, when they crash land, the Doctor takes one of the circuits that's damaged from the TARDIS is the visual stabilizer circuit. It's got a fault in it, and when he pulls it out, the TARDIS turns invisible.
Yep.
And so when they come back with the fixed circuits at the end of episode 8, they're having to feel their way around in this field for where's the invisible TARDIS to get in.
Yep.
And the Doctor eventually leans on it with his elbow. All of that was cool.
And they implied too that even the inside went invisible because they're bumping around trying to find the way out.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's funny. All right, so I think that'll do it for this time for our discussion of The Invasion. As we wrap up, we want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Doctor Who, including Erica H., Neil B., Selena C., Caroline E., and Terry F. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And we'd also like to thank Zyman Yannick, who edited this episode for us. So that's it from us. What did you think of The Invasion? Let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, or send an email to drwho@sqpn.com, or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. You can leave a comment and watch The Secrets of Doctor Who on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. That's right, we make the show available as a video as well. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the third Doctor story, Frontier in Space. Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing The Secrets of Doctor Who.
Thank you, Dom.
Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thanks, Tom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest, and remember, why are you so gullible, Packer?